Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Friday. Y'all, I got so much to do. I don't even know where to start, but I got to start somewhere, right? I'm starting with getting episode 15 out of the way today. Big thank you to Debbie Lou as well as April from Kentucky for your donations. I appreciate you guys so much. Music fact of the day. Billy Joel went to Woodstock before he was a famous singer and songwriter. He only spent a day and a half at the music festival, and he wanted to see Jimi Hendrix perform, but Billy Joel ended up and left early because the bathrooms were so nasty. Little nugget that I found going through some notes. Jill Kimmel, who is the sister of Jimmy Kimmel, was actually a friend of Alex Cox's. She had a crush on him, and she's also a comedian. She had been interviewed, I believe, by Dateline about this case at some point. We're going to jump in. This is the next to the last episode. I'm finishing it up, and that should be out at some point tomorrow. So December 3rd, in an email between investigators, they say Melaniece showed up at the Rexburg Police Department and was currently speaking to them. Ian, her husband of just a few weeks, called to check in on her. And when asked, he said he didn't know Lori and he didn't know JJ. He says he's only known Melaniece for a month. Investigators were supposed to be having a meeting at this time, but they decided to change that due to the fact that she was interviewing at that moment. According to Fox 10 Phoenix, Melaniece told Ian she was interrogated for 5 hours and said the officers were possessed with the spirits of two of the original disciples of Cain. December 3rd, Alex gets a burner phone. December 4th, there's a text from Zulema to Alex saying that Raphael, which is Chad, has gotten a new phone number. In an email between investigators, at this point, the FBI is looking into marriage records for Lori and Chad. And they also say that Alex was legally allowed to carry a firearm, and Border Patrol was working with Amazon Shipping to see if there's any new or different addresses for Lori and Chad. They also are listening to these podcasts that were put out by Lori, Melanie Gibb, Jason Mao, the ones we've talked about in past episodes. They also send quotes to each other in email chains where they're picking out little things in these podcasts that is suspicious. Ian meets with Lieutenant Ball and someone from the FBI and says it's possible that Chad, Lori, and Alex are behind the shooting attempt on Brandon, and also that JJ and Tylee could be in danger. He also says while they were all in Las Vegas, Alex and Zulema were preparing earthquakes to hit Salt Lake City, which would mean many possessions would happen because of the number of people injured. Ian also allows investigators to take possession of his phone to pull data off of. He meets with them later that afternoon again, and this is when investigators give Ian a recording device to see if he can get any information on the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee, the whereabouts of Lori and Chad, or anything about the attempt on Brandon. Ian's ex-wife, Natalie, contacts a business associate of Brandon's to locate him. Natalie says Melaniece told Ian that a demon had possessed her, meaning Ian's ex-wife, Natalie, and that her spirit came to visit her in a vision to tell her. She also says Melaniece told Ian his kids were full of light, but that could change at any moment. Natalie said Ian is terrified and asks her to keep the kids on his weekend because he didn't want them around Melaniece, and he's never done that before. She also says Ian told her to research Alex Cox and Chad Daybell. So at 4:08, Alex texts Chad's new burner phone. He had him listed as Guy in his contacts, and Alex says, "Hey, it's Ray Romano." No response from Chad on that. December 6th, Melanie Gibb calls the Rexburg Police Department and admits Lori and Chad called her on November 26th separately and asked her to lie about JJ being with her. Melanie said she told them no. We know she misled investigators completely. Now, at this point, law enforcement is following Zulema and Alex. Zulema was seen going to a temple. They note that her and Alex are seen leaving her house together in Alex's truck and were gone around 50 minutes. It's crazy to think that Alex is under surveillance and in just a few days he's going to be dead. December 6th, investigators put together an involved persons matrix. In that matrix, it says Lori allegedly had a religious prophecy that Brandon was gay and convinced Melaniece it was true. As of this date, Brandon had paid Melaniece $300,000. She would get more money when their marital home sold. And he also had a $250 life insurance policy with her as the beneficiary. The same day, detectives from Rexburg PD interview Garth Daybell, the son of Tammy and Chad, at Madison Junior High School. Alex complains to Zulema of having shortness of breath and burning in his chest, and he would complain of this from this day forward. He also texts Chad's burner phone asking about Lily, which is another name for Lori. Investigators note Lori is the one responding to Alex from Chad's phone. December 7th, Alex drives to Algodones, Mexico to buy prescriptions due to the lower cost. I've always wondered, did he get something there that killed him because the timing of his death was way too convenient? Who knows? We'll never know because it was ruled natural. December 8th, Kay emails Detective Moffat and says they're going to call a child welfare check the next day to Arizona and Idaho's Children's Services to poise themselves to get JJ without any issues once he's found. She said, I'm assuming this will cause no issue for investigations, but we really don't care about all that. All we care about is that we must get our boy back and you have to find him quickly. So she also says she had bought JJ some super cool glow in the dark PJs and they want him wearing them by Christmas there with them. She said, I pray this can happen. The next day, Detective Moffat responds and said that that would not interfere at all with their investigation. December 8th, Melanie Gibb records a phone conversation with herself, Lori, and Chad. It's long and it's really, really hard to go back and forth with three people. So I'm just going to give you a summary essentially of what it was. She questions Lori about JJ. Why did you tell police he was with me? Friends don't do that. Lori says she was trying to keep everybody safe, Melanie Gibb and JJ. Then Melanie Gibb throws some scripture around and says Lori's been deceived by Satan. She points out both Lori and Chad's spouses are dead and says she was never really comfortable with some of the stuff they did. Chad says she's being influenced by her boyfriend, David Warwick. And Chad says also his sister-in-law is influencing her because we know she was questioning the circumstances around Tammy Daybell's death. Tammy's sister was. Now, Melanie Gibb says, I don't know her. Like, I have no clue who she is. And then they kind of have this scripture, I know you are, but what am I, back and forth. And Lori acknowledges Melanie may be recording this for police, which she was. And I also think that's why in this conversation, Melanie tries to say, well, I never was really comfortable with this or that. I mean, once people on the outside are aware of what has been transpiring, I imagine it's pretty embarrassing that you were caught up in that and you believed it and participated actively. Ian and Melaniece gave an interview much later. This was a month before the kids' bodies were found to 12 News. Ian said when he divorced his wife, Natalie, she cut off the whole side of his family with no communication. Then in December of 2019, his mom calls and says she had just talked to Natalie. And she said Melaniece, Lori, and Chad are in a cult. They murdered somebody back in July and they tried to kill Brandon. Ian said he reached out to his ex-wife asking where she had heard this. And she said Brandon and one of his business partners. He said after seeing Lori and Chad disappear and knowing that investigators are looking for JJ, it's important to know he didn't mention Tylee specifically in this interview. He got worried and wanted to get all this behind him as quickly as possible. So him and his ex-wife go and talk to the FBI and the Rexburg police to tell them what he knew up to that point. Remember, we talked, I believe it was last episode, about how on their wedding night, Melanie starts going into all this stuff about zombies and that kind of thing. He was taking notes on his computer as this went along, I think probably outside of her presence, but it ended up in the hands of Brandon, and that was used in the custody battle between the two of them. He said at the same time, Melaniece had been sharing her fears with him and her own thinking of what was going on. So he took that and ran with it. And he said it turned into a big mess. So the FBI wanted him to record some calls because the FBI thought maybe Chad and Lori would call Melaniece and slip up and might tell where the kids were. And then it would be over with. He said it didn't happen that way and nothing revealed where JJ and Tylee were, and nothing was ever said that was anything more than just catching up in general, talking about religious stuff. So when asked if any red flags went up, he said he thought Melaniece was being taken advantage of, but as he sat back and watched, he didn't see anything. So he knew Melaniece was a fine and good person. So then he says he realized things aren't the way they have been portrayed to him. So he's talking about, I think, investigators. He felt like they kind of duped him. And that's sort of the general feeling that Ian had by the end of trying to record these calls. You have to wonder, I mean, now you've got his ex-wife who is totally innocent and removed from all this until Ian marries into this. Then you've got your kids where Ian didn't even want his kids to be with him on his weekends because he was scared of Melaniece essentially at that point. But he said he wanted to give her a fair chance. So he kept listening and asking questions, hoping everything would click, but it never did. He offered to do the recordings. So they gave him something that looked like a USB device. And December 9th, Kay asked Detective Moffat if there's any word on JJ's medicine having been refilled. She also said she's been in contact with Arizona and Idaho authorities with their concerns for JJ. So on December 9th, Alex texts Zulema asking if she ordered the storms that are occurring, and she responds that she ordered the storms when they were having a barbecue. December 10th, Alex asked Chad to give him a blessing because he was having a bad attack and couldn't breathe. On December 11th, Tammy Daybell's body is exhumed. Employees with the city parks arrived to the cemetery at 6 a.m. to prepare. In attendance, aside from investigators, were the county attorneys, sheriff from Idaho, sheriff from Utah, coroners, coroner's assistants, and a funeral home director. Witnesses arrived at 6:30, then she was exhumed. An autopsy was completed. She was reburied around 2:30 p.m. that day. Now, at some point, Chad calls Tammy's sister and asked if they knew anything about Tammy being exhumed, and they did not. We do know it was Chad who told Alex they were exhuming her body. Tammy's dad said they didn't know until police told him. He went to her grave and found that it was dug up. Also, there was a post on a Reddit forum that was titled Grief Support. That was the name of the forum. And this allegedly came from one of Chad's kids. And it says, exhuming body without family permission. It says, my mother passed away October 19th, 2019. The coroner told us natural causes. It looked like the textbook definition of heart failure. The death was unexpected and my family has taken it hard. My dad has already remarried. A friend of the family lost her husband earlier this year, and for whatever reason, she and my dad decided to tie the knot. It feels weird, but I already have a positive relationship with my new stepmom, and she has helped our family grieve. It's definitely a weird marriage. Both still talk of their former spouses frequently. My dad misses my mother terribly. A few neighbors in our small town have decided that since my dad remarried so quickly, he murdered my mother. This started out as a benign, though hurtful rumor. It has escalated to the point, however, that they exhumed my mom's body for an autopsy. The family had no warning. We went to visit her grave and her body had been dug up. I don't know the results of the autopsy yet, but I feel extremely violated. I just want to grieve. I'm hurt that my aunt would cause so much trouble. Earlier in the paragraph, it got cut off, but I do remember when the neighbor started gossiping, she said it was kind of fueled by Tammy's sister. She ends with, has anyone else experienced anything like this? I feel so alone. What you know, Alec buyers, you know I've been traveling weekly to cover the Alec Murdaugh murder trial, and I hate packing. And even more, I hate loading and unloading a bunch of bags when I get back to Walterboro. The Weekender bag from Base has cut down the number of bags I need to take and has all the things I need, like a laptop sleeve and even a key leash. Base was created by actress Shay Mitchell to make sleek and affordable bags, luggage, and accessories designed to help you travel effortlessly while still looking fashionable. Base has thought of everything you could ever want in a piece of luggage. 360-degree gliding wheels, a cushioned handle, built-in weight indicator, washable bags for your dirty clothes, and all the interior pockets you need to keep organized. Their luggage comes in multiple sizes and colors, and for shorter trips, the Weekender bag is super functional and even has a place to store your shoes separately. Every piece is made to look better with miles, so you don't have to worry about it in cargo or overhead. And Base has over 30,000 five-star reviews. Whether you're packing for a quick trip or looking to breeze through the security line, Base has your personal items covered. Right now, Base is offering my listeners 15% off your first purchase by visiting basetravel.com/whattheworld. Go to basetravel.com/whattheworld for 15% off your first purchase. That's Base, BEIS travel.com/whattheworld. Let me tell you all about our sponsor of the week, Pros. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to hair care, and that's because your hair and your hair goals are completely unique. My hair is dry and frizzy. I wanted to get rid of these problems. Thanks to my personalized Pros routine, I can honestly say I've never been in more love with my hair. First, Pros asked me for my hair goals, which was smoother hair with color protection. Their in-depth consultation also asks about you as a person. Pros ask me really unexpected things like my age, hair length, do I get split ends, and even my zip code, so that Pros can factor in the environment my hair lives in. Next, Pros analyzed all my answers and handpicked clean ingredients to help me reach my hair goals. I used the Scalp Remedy, Clarify and Cleanse Color Extending Shampoo, and the Smoothing Solution Volume Building Conditioner. I also used the Boar's Hairbrush that makes my hair super smooth. My hair is completely different. The frizz is gone and it's so much softer. All their ingredients are sustainably sourced, ethically gathered, and cruelty-free. They're also the first custom beauty brand to go carbon neutral. If you're not 100% positive Pros is the best care hair you've had, they will take the products back, no questions asked. Pros is the key to achieving all your hair goals this year. Take your free in-depth hair consultation and get 15% off your first order today. Go to pros.com/whattheworld. That's pros, PROSE.com/whattheworld for your free in-depth hair consultation and 15% off. December 12th, Chad texts Alex asking how's he doing, and Alex says he's winded every time he stands up and his resting pulse is 100. At 11:53 a.m., Alex says, I feel like the poison from the spear in the heart has done some residual damage. Chad tells Alex that he paid the bills on the Rexburg house, and Alex said he was just going to let it go along with everything that was there that belonged to him. So he receives a priesthood blessing over the phone from Chad. By the way, this is the day after Tammy Daybell's body has been exhumed when this is happening. At 12:15 p.m., Melaniece calls Alex. She told Nate Eaton from East Idaho News that she was telling Alex she would meet him halfway between Idaho and Arizona to bring some of his things to him, and he told her to wait because he wasn't feeling well. She also said Alex gave her marriage advice that morning, and she wrote it down. I don't think I'd take any advice from Alex Cox, but you do you. 12:38 p.m., Alex calls Chad. 12:47, Alex texts Melaniece. That's a big no-go on your stuff. Just buy a new computer. They don't give it back to you. They're holding it for leverage until you help them, so just write it off. Her computer was seized in that search warrant that was executed at the townhomes in Rexburg. So that's what this is about. So at some point, Lori calls Zulema and tells her to check on Alex. She calls him and he says, I can't breathe. I'm having a hard time breathing. Zulema calls her son, who was home at the time, and said Alex wasn't doing well. And Zulema tells him to call 911. Investigators note the last activity on Alex's phone was a call to Chad and Lori on this Raphael burner phone number. Other than that, there's very little communication from Alex. What's interesting to note is the day Alex dies was the day they were having an all-agency meeting about the case. At the end of the meeting, the Gilbert PD was informed that Alex had been the subject of a 911 call, and later the detective learned that Alex had died. They were wanting to talk about Alex being connected to Charles Vallow's murder. You know, it always just haunts me to think how much information died with that man on that table. So the 911 call came in at 3:20. Joseph, who is Zulema's son, says, I have an older male here named Alex. He's just passed out here in the bathroom. Dispatch asks if he's breathing normally. Can you see his chest rise and fall? And Joseph says, I hope so. They ask Alex's age, and Joseph said he's in his 40s. And then the dispatch asked, do you know him? And he said, it's my mother's boyfriend. So even Joseph didn't know, apparently, that his mom and Alex had gotten married in Vegas. Joseph tells dispatch that Alex is laying on his side, so dispatch tells him to put him flat on his back. Joseph says there's feces there and I'm trying to keep cool right now. This is where the justice bus pulled up and parked in front of Alex's house. If you remember, dispatch told him to do compressions on Charles, and we know he lied and he didn't do it. She says, I know it's gross, but let's get him on his back to see if he's breathing. And you hear Joseph say, Alex, we got to get you on your back. The dispatch asks if he's awake or asleep. And he said he's more passed out. He's breathing. They ask if Alex is making any weird sounds. And Joseph says he's making an exhale sound like woo. Dispatch tells him to start CPR. And Joseph says, I don't think I can do that. And he says that a few times. So he says, yo, Alex. And then he tells dispatch he's not breathing. Dispatch says to lay him on his back, and Joseph says he can't because Alex is too big. So Joseph tells dispatch, my mom just got here. Then you hear Joseph say, come here, it's really bad. Come upstairs in the bathroom. We need to get him on his back. Dispatch tells Zulema to get him on his back and to start CPR. Zulema says she knows how to do it and asks how far out they are. Dispatch says they're actually out front now, and Zulema says we're up on the second floor. Dispatch asks Joseph for Alex's last name, and Joseph says, I don't know. So first responders arrive and they begin compressions. Now there's body cam footage that lasts 4 hours. And I have those up, I believe, on YouTube page. I need to link those. On the footage, the officer asked Zulema when she last talked to Alex, and she said he was talking to a friend on the phone and said he wasn't feeling well. So the friend said they would give him a blessing. And her friends texted her and said, you better get home now. He's not doing well. He's on the ground in the bathroom. So I called my son and said, go over there, make sure he doesn't pass out. I'm on my way home. She told her son to hang up and call 911. It's interesting to me. I wonder if the blessing was on, it's not even a blessing, but I wonder if the hogwash was FaceTime, because how would they know where he was in the house and that he was on the floor? That, unless Alex told him, but still, it's something's always been curious to me. The officer updates Zulema a little later that Alex does not have a pulse and he's not breathing. They're doing compressions, giving him medication, and they're trying to restart his heart, but they tell her he is in extremely critical condition. So the video then switches to the emergency room. You can hear them doing CPR. They're using the breathing tube, and they're also giving him a ton of epinephrine. The officer says there's reasons. And so I'm assuming that he was asked, why are we staying in this room right now? Now, remember, they get the 911 call up at the all agency meeting. So I'm sure they had their staff on it right away. A staff member says the wife is coming in the room, and you see Zulema go to the left of the foot of the bed in the ER. She says, Alex, I know you can hear me. You need to come back to me, honey. I know you can hear me. Come back. She says this kind of over and over several times. The officer is on the phone and he tells someone they're still working on him now. We've got 20 people in this room. So the officer asks on a radio when compressions were started. Someone responds 3:29 p.m. Someone says they've been doing compressions for 45 minutes and have had no response. So they pronounce Alex dead. An officer calls someone to tell them the time of death, which I'm assuming is somebody at that meeting. And he says the wife is here with the body. He's told by someone to stay with Alex's body. Zulema is seen, is blurred out, but she's at the head of the bed, kind of leaning over Alex's body. The nurse is asking Zulema about who to call to inform them of Alex's death, and she names off her kids. You can hear her crying, and Melanie Gibb told Nate Eaton that her bishop called her asking why there were cop cars around Alex and Zulema's house. So she explained some things to him. He calls her back and says, hey, Alex is dead. She said Alex knew Melanie Gibb was going to tell the police everything she knew, and she said it was made known to him. Now, again, that's that backtracking of her saying, I know everything, I'm going to the police, and Alex knew this. Also, on this day, there's an email from JJ's school. It says they are overwhelmed by all of this. They're emotional, and they know Lori lied to them, and they were brought into this nightmare situation by her. The school was really worried that Lori might show up with her crazy self, and the staff member says, are you confident we're safe? Should we be doing anything different? They say staff is scared due to her irrational behavior and her doomsday talk. An investigator tells the staff member that Lori is in Hawaii, and they also have seen where Lori was accessing JJ's It's a Blooms app, which is for parents of students at that school. So back to Alex. At some point after his death, his mom Janice is notified. She didn't know he was back in Arizona or that he had gotten married. December 13th, there's an email between investigators. He is deceased as of 4:19 yesterday. He was found with labored breathing, unresponsive at his shared residence with the Zulema. Zulema and her family refused to provide statements, but they did talk to initial officers. They say this is the case that keeps on giving in that email. So when investigators, after Alex dies, Zulema eventually goes back home. While she's in the ER, her son-in-law tells her not to talk to authorities, that they are going to hire an attorney, which always is something that makes me wonder. December 14th, Alex's autopsy takes place and they collect a blood clot and a major case print from Alex. The autopsy took place at 8:07 a.m. and Rexburg PD and the FBI were in attendance. So what was the cause of death officially? Blood clots in both lungs. It said the contributing factor was hardening of the arteries and hypersensitive cardiac disease. It was ruled natural. The left side was worse than the right. He had benign masses on his liver, a polyp in his stomach, an enlarged prostate, which was noted is usually age-related. Toxicology was negative, and Zulema said he wasn't taking any medications. He did have Narcan in his system, but this is very normal. So a lot of times when first responders arrive and somebody's just unconscious and they don't know yet why, it doesn't hurt to give Narcan just in case it's a drug overdose. As we all know now, it can save lives. He was positive for caffeine. Also, in an email between Detective Moffat and Kay, he tells her Alex's autopsy was that day and it was natural causes, and the grand finale was blood clots in the lungs. So Kay asks Detective Moffat if it's a problem if she were to email Lori and Chad both to ask for JJ. So Kay emails them and says the reason she wanted to send an email to Chad is to maybe have Chad catch Lori in a lie and make him think instead of using the body part he's currently thinking with. Good one, Kay. December 14th, in an email between investigators, one said he spoke with Ian Pulowski, Melanie's new husband, that evening and said Chad and Lori called Melaniece that night. They said that Rexburg PD had contacted two of Chad's kids and threatened to exhume Tammy's body. Chad and Lori thought this was a lie. Law enforcement notes that Chad and Lori apparently don't know that she was already exhumed, and they didn't volunteer that information to Ian. Chad and Lori told Melaniece they were being bullied by Rexburg PD and planned to get a lawyer to represent them and Chad's kids. His kids will then refer law enforcement to the lawyer. They also hear a rumor that the FBI is involved, but they thought it was a scare tactic. On December 16th, Tylee's Facebook account accepted 2 new friend requests. December 17th, investigators email about Tylee's Facebook account. They say there's not a lot there, but something glaring to them was that her account was accessed from California and Kansas. Ian reaches out to detectives on behalf of Melaniece, saying she wanted to clear her name and had a lot of information, but she was hesitant to provide it in an interview setting due to a previous bad experience with the police, probably when she got arrested. She offered to provide a written statement to start, and then they could ask follow-up questions. She asked if they could give her back some of her property from Rexburg, including that computer. And at this point, detectives didn't have a warrant to search those computers, by the way. Ian said Melaniece was possibly going to seek legal advice from Chad and Lori's attorney, and she also wanted to see if she could arrange Christmas gifts to be sent to her children through a third party. At this time, she was not allowed to see or have any contact with her kids. Kay emails Detective Moffat telling of the different places Lori has connections to in Hawaii and asks also, is anybody watching schools to see if JJ's going to school there? December 18th, Chad's parents, Jack and Sheila, are interviewed by Rexburg police. December 19th, Kay emails Detective Moffat and says she and Larry want to be a part of the press release about JJ and Tylee being missing to put a face out there instead of it being printed that the grandparents missed their grandson. She also asks if there's any way they could meet any of Chad's kids or the Daybell family to make JJ real to them. She also wanted to reach out to JJ's teachers to ask about his demeanor while he was at school. Kay mentions he has so many changes so fast, and JJ doesn't adapt that easily to change. Detective Hermosillo contacts Ian and says they have a search warrant for Alex's unit and asks for the garage code so they don't have to bust in the door. So he gives it to them, and they go in with forensics to see if there's any sign JJ had been in that apartment. That was the second search warrant, by the way. We had that first one when they all scattered the night before. This is the second. After law enforcement leaves, Ian goes into that apartment to see if anything was taken and also to look for the search warrant. Ian admits to Melaniece he's been talking to the FBI and he's been recording their conversations for 2 weeks. On Dateline, Ian told Keith Morrison that she forgave him and they're moving forward. He said they will still answer any FBI questions, though, through their attorney. He told Keith Morrison, I opened up to Melaniece because, I'm starting to see her perspective. See, this isn't all the hype it's been made up to be. In an email between the FBI, Detective Moffat, and the Office of the Inspector General's office, they agree there's potential fraud and potential endangerment issues with JJ and Tylee, and they say that they're going to get some information together. It also says they want to suspend the Social Security benefits based on these issues, but they want to hold off until the Office of the Inspector General provides them with the information so the information doesn't potentially become stale. December 20th, the first media reports about JJ and Tylee hit the internet and the TV, and Rexburg PD officially announced the investigation into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee. All right, guys, that's it for today. Tomorrow, we're finishing this up really fast from here. There's just a lot of sightings and some back and forth. I'm going to catch you up in a very condensed way of what transpired from her arrest to trial starting on Monday. So, what's the plan for next week? Well, Monday starts jury selection, and we cannot be in the courtroom for jury selection, but there is an overflow room that we actually had to start today putting in the lottery system for a seat in the courtroom. And we will bring you as much as what can be gathered from jury selection. And then at some point next week, we're going to have openings in this trial. Hard to believe. I've been following this since that last paragraph I read out when it went public. So it's just very surreal that it's coming to the point now to where she is going to trial. Okay, guys, have a good Friday. We'll see you soon.